You've probably been taught before that calorie restriction diets are an effective strategy for losing weight, with the idea in mind that if I'm eating fewer calories than I'm burning, that must mean I'm going to tap into my fat reserves and burn it off. It sounds like it's a good idea, but when you see all the science behind it, you'll start to realize why it's not effective. And I will not just bash that, but I'll show you what's actually a better idea, which obviously is intermittent fasting. So here we are. Forgive the crudity of this drawing. This is just kind of a simplification of what happened with clinical trials of things that happen when people do a calorie restricted diet. Now, the number at the top is 2,000. That's roughly the average of how many calories a person consumes and burns throughout the day, and just kind of has this equilibrium thing happen. The green line just represents what you do. You decide, okay, I'm just going to consume 1,500 calories instead, with the idea being that I'm going to burn those extra 500 calories a day, and I should burn off fat because I'm not giving myself enough calories in my diet. Well, as time goes on, what happens is the red line, that represents your resting metabolic rate, which means, the rate at which you are burning calories. If you feed yourself only 1,500 for long enough, all it really ends up happening is your body will adjust and you will start burning fewer calories per day. It just will happen. And that's not good for lots of reasons. First, if you do that long enough and you just withhold calories, and you don't care about the timing of your food, you just eat 1,500, you're eventually going to have kind of a rebound. You're going to lose it, and you're going to have a binge eating session later on, and you'll eat like 2 or 3,000 calories the next day, just kind of as a rebound effect. And because your metabolic rate has slowed down so much, you're not going to burn that off. And so all those extra calories are going to be sitting there, and guess what? Your body's going to send it straight to your fat stores, and you've got a worse problem, even though you might have experienced a temporary loss of weight first when you first started that. And it's really not a healthy thing to do to your metabolic rate, is to make it slow down. We don't want that. If you're on here watching this video, it's because you want to be able to burn off your extra calories. So another plan that's actually a better idea is using the method that I use, which is just my own version of intermittent fasting. And this is what actually happens. You go for a time where your eating window is very small, and so you're basically consuming 0 calories for enough time in your day that's what creates the deficit. And when you do that, if you think back to my analogy that I use with the truck, yeah, you got to empty tank 1 before you start to use tank 2. Now, the red line does come down a bit when you start on a fasting regimen, but it does perk back up. And it doesn't come down to a serious rate where you're feeling like you're really sluggish. Now, going back to my truck analogy from one of the previous videos, okay, yeah, can you imagine that truck and you've got a full tank of gas, but then you limit it by turning off half of the cylinders in that V8? And just say, well, only 4 cylinders are firing. How good do you think that truck's going to be going up hills, especially if you got a load in the back? Not very good. So think about that in terms of, how will your body respond if you've slowed your metabolic rate down with one of those other programs. Your body is not going to be, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be irritable and edgy because you're not burning the number of calories that your body really wants to have an optimal day. And so using a fasting method is way better because your metabolic rate does stay nice and high, stays in that sweet spot. And then because you're restricting your time that you're eating, you're going to have hours throughout the day where there wasn't glycogen there and the body dipped into your fat reserves, and you had enough energy to burn, and you still managed to burn somewhere near 2,000 calories per day. That's what the sweet spot is for burning weight, for burning fat. You just have to get into that state. And I promise that if you stick with my program long enough, you do get to a point where a lot of this stuff is happening almost on autopilot. You're having this caloric deficit the right way. And when your body has shifted to burning the other type of fuel, you're fine. You can get through your day. Some people, they delay doing a weight loss program because they think, oh, this is the bad time for me. This is happening or that's happening, or I'm going on a holiday or whatever. And I'm thinking, no, any time is good, especially if you have something to do that's important to distract you from your regular eating routine. The more you have on your plate, schedule wise, the better, because then you're not going to sit around thinking about, oh, I wish I could eat, because you're going to be busy doing stuff. And so whether you're working or playing really hard, that's the perfect time to start an intermittent fasting program, because you'll be busy. You'll be doing other things, and you'll pass through those little hunger signals, and you won't even care. It's like, oh yeah, I was too busy. I'll get to it because my plan is telling me I get to eat later in the day, or whatever it is that you're on as far as your fasting windows and eating windows. So I hope that explains why the fasting regimen is way better strategy for burning fat instead of just calorie restriction. Calorie restriction, when you hear it, it sounds like a good idea, but long term, when you've wrecked your metabolism, you're in a whole lot of trouble, because when you finally do eat and indulge, you're going to store a lot more fat because you're not going to burn nearly as many calories as you used to. So trust me, this works. And I'm living proof. And people I've taught this system to, they're experiencing similar results. Their energy levels are, eventually they're fine, and everything just runs like it should. And you're burning off that extra fuel that your body stored because it knew that eventually the famine was coming, and you just provided it for yourself. Okay, talk to you in the next video.